drug traffic, but they're trying to stop the migration because they're afraid of Trump. Irene, be safe down there. It isn't safe. Jason Vaz, Katori, Japan. I have to wonder why President Zelensky did not choose to use an interpreter while speaking to President Trump. I thought it was an unwritten rule that foreign dignitaries do that. No. Zelensky speaks English fairly well. He didn't need an interpreter. In a moment, something you might not know. There is a growing real estate crime out there. The FBI calls it house stealing. Criminals forge your signature on one document, file it with a fake notary stamp. Just like that, your title's gone. Then criminals can take out loans or sell without you knowing. So, when is the last time you checked your home's title? Probably never. And the scammers know it. That's why I trust Home Title Lock's $1 million triple lock protection. You get 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud does occur, they'll spend up to $1 million to restore your title at no added cost. Please go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use promo code BILL250 now for a free title history report and access to your title expert. $250 value when you sign up. HomeTitleLock.com. Code BILL250.
Attention all gun enthusiasts. Don't miss your chance to win an unforgettable Saturday with Gun Show Craig at the Gun Show Show's first annual machine gun shoot and take ride. Simply by attending each of the 3 upcoming gun shows, Big St. Charles County gun shows in March and May, and the Big St. Louis Gun Show in April, you'll be entered into a limited chance to win this incredible experience. Shoot various machine guns, plus you'll get to ride in a real tank. Attend all 3 gun shows for up to 3 chances to win the Gun Show Show's annual machine gun shoot and tank ride. More info at bkpromotions.us.
Sundays at 5 on News Talk STL.
All your hard-earned tax dollars and mine are going to fund illegal aliens who come across the border penniless, jobless, skillless, and they're given a cell phone, an identity, and a cash stipend every month.
Mark McCloskey on fire.
That beats your Social Security income if you should have the good nature to work your ass off your whole life and retire.
Mark McCloskey on fire. Sundays at 5 on News Talk STL. Brought to you in part by Modern Weapon Systems in Fenton.
Now the O'Reilly Update brings you something you might not know. 44 years ago this evening, the anchor of the CBS Signature News program signed off for the final time. Over the span of 2 decades, the journalist had earned his nickname, the most trusted man in America. Here is the story of Walter Cronkite. Born November 1916 in Missouri, the broadcaster began his career reporting from Europe during World War II. He covered the 1952 and 56 presidential elections, then the Olympic Games. Cronkite took over as the CBS anchor in April 1962. For the next 19 years, he delivered the news during some of the most significant events in American history: Cuban Missile Crisis, assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Robert Kennedy, the lunar landing, war in Vietnam, Watergate. Uncle Walter, as he was known, relinquished the anchor's chair at the age of 65, but only because CBS mandated retirement at that age. He later told me in an interview that handing the anchor chair to Dan Rather was a mistake. Cronkite said he should have fought harder to keep the job for a few more years. On March 6, 1981, Cronkite said goodbye.
This is my last broadcast as the anchorman of the CBS Evening News. For me, it's a moment for which I long have planned, but which nevertheless comes with some sadness. For almost 2 decades, after all, we've been meeting like this in the evenings, and I'll miss that. But those who have made anything of this departure, I'm afraid, have made too much. This is but a transition, a passing of the baton. A great broadcaster and gentleman, Doug Edwards, preceded me in this job, and another, Dan Rather, will follow.
Walter Cronkite remained in public life, writing a syndicated column, hosting the Kennedy Center Honors. He died in 2009 at the age of 92. And here's something else you might not know. Despite his serious reputation, Cronkite often made appearances on entertainment programs. Throughout the years, he can be seen on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Murphy Brown, another comedy, The Simpsons. Walter also makes a brief appearance in the James Bond film Tomorrow Never Dies. Cronkite. Walter Cronkite. Back after this. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the USA with thousands of different plants and more than 2 million happy customers? They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, and much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Just order online, get your dream yard delivered right to your door. And this spring, they have the best deals, up to half off on select plants. Plus, my listeners get 15% off their first purchase when using code BILL at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com with code BILL at checkout. Now is the perfect time to plant. That's fastgrowingtrees.com. Don't forget, use code BILL to save. Offers valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. President Trump is postponing the new tariffs on most goods from Canada and Mexico for a month. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
In a reversal, the president is delaying the 25% tariffs on many Canadian and Mexican imports. This is the second one-month postponement since he first unveiled the import taxes early last month. The threatened tariffs have jeopardized relations with America's two neighbors, and the plans have caused the stock market to sink. The president says he still plans to impose reciprocal tariffs starting in early April. Greg Clugston, Washington.
House Republicans are pursuing a stopgap measure to keep the government funded through September, looking to shore up support for the continuing resolution with less than 10 days to prevent a government shutdown. Details from correspondent Bernie Bennett.
Speaker Mike Johnson has outlined plans for the measure, which is expected to extend funding at current levels through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, and has the backing of President Trump. In a social media post on Wednesday, Mr. Trump said, quote, "Conservatives will love this bill," calling the continuing resolution, quote, "very important." But Republicans are facing pressure to do so without support from Democrats. Johnson told reporters Tuesday that he's hoping to release the text of the continuing resolution by the end of the week. Bernie Bennett reporting.
The House has voted to censure Al Green, a Democratic congressman from Texas, for disrupting President Trump's address to Congress earlier in the week. Green offered no regrets when he explained his actions on the House floor and said he'd do it again. The resolution against Green was approved in a mostly party line vote of 224 to 198 on Thursday. Yet another rough day on Wall Street as the Dow was down by 536 points, the Nasdaq dropping 43, the S&P lower by 104. More at townhall.com.
Healthcare is complicated. It doesn't have to be. If you don't love how your health insurance works, maybe it's time to leave traditional health insurance behind. Take charge of your healthcare with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM offers you flexibility. Enroll anytime, choose your own provider, and select the program that fits your needs and budget. CHM is the original faith-based way of taking care of your medical bill costs. Learn more at chministries.org/wellness.
You heard me talk about Relief Factor and how so many people enjoy a better, more pain-free life because of it. If you're dealing with everyday pain, it makes sense you'd want to try it first. Well, Relief Factor makes that pretty pain-free too with their 3-week quick start kit for only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or eliminate pain. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF for Relief Factor.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A bigger warm-up on the way for Friday. Overnight low 40 degrees. Slight chance for a brief shower in the morning. About 20% chance, though. And then in the afternoon, partly cloudy and a big warm-up, a high of 66. There's a chance for a couple showers in the evening and nighttime. They'll be light and brief, nothing big, but you may see a little light rain Friday night. It'll be out by daybreak on Saturday. Saturday, a little cooler, high 54, partly to mostly sunny. Sunday, warmer 62 and sunny skies for a nice weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Jewels on Hampton, paying some of the highest prices for your gold, silver, diamonds, and more. Call 314-752-5000 or visit jewelsonhampton.com.
Springtime in St. Louis, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor Mr. Rob Miller from Harvesttown Auto Body in St. Peters did. He called Rhino Shield. Rob, what was the thought process for going with Rhino Shield as a business owner?
My family's business is over 10,000 square feet, and it did not have the curb appeal I wanted.
Rob, tell everyone how the experience was with Rhino Shield from start to finish.
The process that I liked was when you came out, you gave me all of these options that would fit my building. Our building was really faded. I don't want to have to paint my building again. 25 years is a long time to not have to worry about the outside maintenance of your building as far as paint. That's a no-brainer. That's why Rhino Shield worked for me.
Are your neighbors jealous?
I would be if I was them.
Thanks, Rob. Now it's time to call 877-25-RHINO, 877-25-RHINO, or 877-25rhino.com. Genius.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
On Friday's show, we're talking about doing some spring cleaning at 7:05. Let's get rid of the Department of Education at 8:35. Let's talk about getting rid of the income tax.
Morning starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
The House will come to order. The House will come to order. Shh. Will Representative Green present himself to the will? By its adoption of House Resolution 189, the House has resolved that Representative Al Green be censured, that Representative Al Green forthwith present himself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure, and that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker. The House will come to order. Clear the well, please. Clear the well. The House has to continue its business.
Democrats in total disarray in the U.S. House. Welcome to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show, 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. It is March the 6th. Happy Thursday here in 2025, 4:06 in the p.m. in the Heartland. Chris, another momentous, historic day. Not as Speaker Johnson said, not a happy day for him, but something he felt that he needed to shepherd through the House, a censure of Al Green.
And what happened after that clip, Tim, typically a member that is receiving censure has to stand in the well of the House and receive his punishment. But more than a dozen Democrats, they stood in the well with him singing, "We shall overcome." And that forced Johnson to put the House in recess instead. So that's how they stopped his that's almost a bastardization of the civil rights movement and all that it stood for, to basically kind of condone what he did the other night, breaking decorum and using one of the great civil rights songs to disrupt his punishment. Something about that just doesn't sit well with me.
I don't think it sits well with many Democrats. In fact, Chris, the reporting out there, even though they don't want to officially go on the record and gain the ire of Congressman Al Green or any of their colleagues, but many reporters today said that Democrats spoke on the condition of anonymity and of being off the record, that they were not happy with Al Green's outburst, that it distracted from it, and that it made him an historical figure for all the wrong reasons. As you pointed out, as far as everyone knows, this is the first time that someone, a sitting congressman or senator, has disrupted a presidential address and had to be removed from the chamber.
And actually, a couple of Democrats did go on record and criticized Al Green. Representative Tom Suozzi, however you say that, he said, quote, "But as a strategic matter, it was a bad idea. Instead of talking about things we disagreed with in the president's speech, everybody's talking about how the Democrats conducted themselves. And I think it was a big mistake." And then Representative Eric Sorensen from Illinois, he said, "I have to serve the Republicans, the Democrats, and the independents in my district. And so for me, it meant sitting there and clapping." So a couple of Democrats did break ranks and criticize Representative Al Green. Sorry, Joey. Representative Al Green's
you need the Captain Caveman theme? Is that what you're
No,
calling for?
I thought you were going to break in there with the Al Green.
Oh, you want me to? I got so
The
much
good,
Al Green.
the good Al Green, as Vic says. There we go. There we go. There's the good Al Green.
All right.
The good Al Green versus the bad Al Green.
Oh, I got into that. I could have got me a glass of bourbon and sat and listened
And
to that
just canceled the rest of the show.
Just listen to the little Al Green.
Let's have Joey play some music. Chris and I, we do have a jam-packed show today. We will continue to discuss that matter along with many others, which are with our featured guests at 4:24. We'll talk about the presidential address, the joint address, not an official State of the Union, but an official joint address, which is what they call it when the president is going before Congress in the very first months of his first term. Donald Trump, a first-termer, 2 times for the second time. We're going to talk about that and the war, the aftermath of the Zelensky visit to the White House, the Chinese threatening and saber rattling. Chris, that's something you brought up yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about all that with Steve Bucci. He is our international man of mystery, our man of foreign affairs, international relations, cybersecurity, and national security. He's from the Heritage Foundation. We're going to get an update on all of that, the war in the Middle East, the capture of one of the masterminds behind the Abbey Gate bombing and evacuation, which affected us very deeply here in the heartland with the death of Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. We'll talk about all of that with Steve Bucci at 4:24.
And Tim, people that didn't get a chance yesterday to listen to Mike Ferguson in the morning at 7:35, they had Jared Schmidt's father on talking about receiving the news the day before from the president that the killer of his son and the other 12 service members had been caught and was on his way to the United States. And Mike probably had an exclusive on that the other morning.
It was an excellent interview,
Mhm.
and I heard some of the clips being played again last night on my way home on the Larry Connors show. Larry Connors USA follows us, 6 p.m. This is why it's so awesome that we have a live and local independently owned radio station from dawn till dusk, because we can all interpopulate each other's shows and share content, because just like you all, we're listeners as well, and we may hear something at 6 a.m. or we may miss it and then catch it later in the day. So we like to cross-pollinate that a lot. And Chris, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that reminded me to remind folks that our new app has the ability for you to quickly find content on our station, such as that awesome interview with Mark Schmitz, right? Mark Schmitz,
Yes.
Jared's father, Jared Schmitz's father. If you go to our new app, which is absolutely spectacular, and I'm not just saying that, I've been using it this week as I've been traveling to and from the Missouri Capitol. It works fantastically. If you hit the wheel of fun, as Vic calls it, the big go button at the bottom, you will see a bunch of little wheels pop up. And if you hit the calendar button, you will then see our entire lineup. You go to the show of your choice. So if you missed the Schmitz interview, you go to the Mike Ferguson show, you follow the show, and then all of the podcast. Am I playing the app? I am. I'm playing the app.
I was wondering where that was coming from. I thought it was my computer.
That's
there for
how
a
good
minute.
the app is. It pops up immediately. Joey's like, click the app off, you amateur. So you can go to each one of our shows. So if one of us is saying, hey, you really missed that awesome interview yesterday with Steve Bucci on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, go to the app, hit the calendar button after you hit the go button, follow our show, and then subscribe to our podcast. When you subscribe to our podcast, all of the last few days, all of the features pop up of each hour. And Joey will have a description in there of who we interviewed. So if you missed the Congressman Eric Burlison interview, Chris, I found that in like 10 seconds. It was right there. The app is fantastic, and you will never miss any of these awesome interviews. If you miss them the first time, you can go back and listen to them the second time.
And Joey has alerted me that our good buddy Mike Ferguson played our Burleson interview today 3 times on his show. So, Mike, we want to thank you for that. Remember, Tim, I told you that I was going to send the clip of his comments to Politico. Maybe we could get a blurb in there. I was really excited this morning. The Politico email came out. They mentioned him, and it's like, we've got a story here, blah, blah.
Okay.
But someone had interviewed him as soon as he got out of the meeting with Trump. And so they used one, it was Politico actually. They used their clip of that. So I was thinking, oh, maybe they used our clip, but still, we were one of the first to talk to Eric Burlison about that meeting with the president in the Oval Office, and the subsequent meeting that he had with Elon Musk. So I'm going to pat ourselves on the back anyway, Tim.
We essentially broke the news because even though that reporter may have talked to Eric Burlison, they didn't have his comments yet up on the air like we did yesterday afternoon in between the congressman's meetings with President Trump and Elon Musk. We had Congressman Eric Burlison live on our air. I think that's
a hard sell.
Absolutely.
We were talking about that during the break.
Fantastic.
Trying to stand up to Elon Musk and Donald Trump, trying to persuade you to do something.
Politicing's easy. Governing is hard. And these folks are having to make a lot of tough choices now that they are in charge up on Capitol Hill. So anyway, Steve Bucci, he'll talk to us about all of the international national security aspects of the joint address and the fallout from that at 4:24. At 4:45, we will have Chris's Corner.
Yeah, we'll talk about the tariff news, of course, which has been permeating the airways the last couple of days. The president has given a reprieve on some of the tariffs. We'll talk about that. And, you know, we mentioned that Gavin Newsom has a new podcast out. It made big news last week. He made a very controversial statement in that brand new podcast, Tim, that will surprise you and many conservatives. And we'll talk about that at 4:45 on Chris's Corner.
Fantastic. So today's speaker stump speech is going to be a little out of the ordinary, although Chris and I think one of the beauties of our show is, yes, we do tons of politics and public policy, but I think over the last almost 4 years, we've also shown you a little bit of our humanity side. We are actual people. They don't just stick us in the closet at the end of the night and wind us up the next day and say, talk politics. You've learned a lot about us and our families and our likes and our dislikes and the things we like to do. So today I thought I think I mentioned this briefly yesterday, but I spent almost the entire day today somewhere where I usually don't. I was in the city of St. Louis almost all day today, and I had a positive experience. And it was because we were celebrating the life of my dear friend from high school, Kurt Richards. We're celebrating the life of his father, who passed away. And I spent almost all day. And Chris, we get so caught up in our daily humdrum, and sometimes I think we forget to stop and smell the roses. And I spent all day in a place where I used to spend a ton of time during my high school years, those formative years for so many of us. I was at St. Gabriel's Parish this morning on the edge of Francis Park in South St. Louis. It is as much as Chris and I complain about the city, deservedly so, there are great neighborhoods still in the city of St. Louis. There are safe, wonderful places. There are historical places. So I spent most of the morning there, and then we went right around the corner for the luncheon, for the funeral luncheon with the family. And we went to the famous South Side Eatery, Pietro's, one of the most famous Italian restaurants on the edge of the hill down there. I heard a lot of stories. I had the chicken. Was it piccata? Maybe they gave us 3 choices. We could have chicken, we could have beef spadini, or we could have fish.
All right.
So almost all of us got the chicken. It was absolutely delicious. You know, had
early, one day early for fish.
Yeah, we had the sauce, had the white sauce. Had the white sauce.
I can't do white sauce. That messes with my stomach.
Well, then we had the side of pasta with the red sauce.
I can do red sauce.
Yeah. And we had the green beans. It was a very South St. Louis luncheon. It was the Italian chicken. It was the green beans. It was the mashed potatoes. It was the side of pasta. And of course, there was an open bar.
Good lunch.
We're all Catholics and Catholics and Lutherans and
Episcopalians.
There may have been a couple Episcopalians.
You know, Becky made a joke today I never heard before. She said, "What happens if you have if you put 4 Episcopalians together?" And she said, "A fifth." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know Episcopalians were known for that." So I guess...
we call them Catholic Light.
I guess
we call them Catholic Light.
Exactly.
So the title of today's Speak or Stump speech is going to be "A Life Well Lived in the Lou." A life well lived in the Lou and beyond. And I'm going to talk about my very good friend's father, who was, as I said yesterday, more of an uncle to me than just another dad of a friend. Elmer Dennis Richards, and he lived a heck of a life. 87 years old. I learned some things I did not know about him today. And one thing, so Elmer loved certain things. He loved the city of St. Louis. He refused to leave it, Chris. He had a home there, and they refused to leave it. They were lifelong South St. Louisans. He also had a little lake house out in Hillsborough in Lake Tishomingo, where I spent a ton of time as a teenager. Lots of adventures out there, some I can't mention on the radio. And he loved his dogs. The joke about Elmer was you want to come back in another life as one of Elmer's pups. He had a ton of mainly Labrador retrievers throughout his life. And he loved his family. Yeah. Big family guy. They had traditions in the Richards family like all of us had. And I saw all of this as kind of a very close bystander throughout my life because of my relationship to the family through one of my best friends from high school, Kurt. So I just want to talk about that because, you know, we get caught up in some of the in some of the daily grind so much. And today I was able to my phone was in the car, and for a couple hours I was with friends and family members and people in the city of St. Louis. And it was a very interesting, it was a rewarding experience. So,
you know, your remarks remind me of a book that I read many, many years ago, famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And in one of the chapters, they want you to engage in an exercise where you imagine it's your funeral. And you are supposed to think of things that you would like people to say about you in different aspects of your life regarding your career, your family, and that nature. And when you really think of it in that way, it helps determine how you live your life, because once you're gone, you want people to say, you know, Tim was this, Tim was that, Tim was this. And it makes you more cognizant of it while you're living. If you think about your demise and what exactly are people going to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I did think about a lot of that. I thought about, you know, hopefully I've got many more decades to go, but Chris, standing there at the age of 53 on the edge of a park that I used to play in as a 15 and run around and cause all kinds of havoc as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, it really brought back lots of memories today. The memories just kind of washed over me. And I thought about a lot of those things. And I thought about, there's 3 people that come to mind. Well, I'd say 4, 4 people really come to mind who I know. You know, some people are like, they know what we do and they're kind of half interested. And there's other people that, you know, are really truly interested in what we do, right? Who aren't in politics. And those 4 people for me would be both of my parents, my mom and dad, of course. They listen to us all the time, love them for it. And they're so excited that I'm on the radio every day and all the political work and the public policy work I do. And then my uncle Alan, who has passed on to the great beyond. He was an over-the-road truck driver. Okay. He listened to conservative radio.
Oh, they love
back in the heyday.
That's like the backbone.
Yeah, when it first began. And he passed away many years ago, so he never heard me on this show, but he heard me do radio when I was doing substitute work and stuff. And he knew he was around when I was in the house. And so he thought that was great. And Elmer Richards. Every time I saw Elmer, he'd always say, Tim, what are those crazy commie Democrats up to these days? And he generally wanted to know. He wanted to know what was going on in my world, what I thought of politics, what I thought of the craziness in Washington, D.C. or Jefferson City. You know, you have those people in your life that they aren't in our world, but they're very interested in it. And they genuinely want to know your opinion about it. And Elmer was one of those guys.
And, you know, truckers really got interested in talk radio back in the day because I've always been a talk radio junkie. But talk radio was mainly at night.
Yes,
back in
that's
the
right.
80s and in the 90s. And if you're over the road driving the big rig somewhere, what else have you got to listen to keep you awake? You're listening to talk radio. And so That's what has endeared talk radio is to truckers. It's just that history of that's all there was to listen to at night.
Very true indeed. At 5:24, we're going to talk to another icon, Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover has been very closely following the One Big Beautiful Bill up on Capitol Hill. So I just made a poem. And he's going to give us the update from the inside as to the prospects for that reconciliation package to get across the finish line. We'll talk to him about tariffs. We'll talk about Trump's pick for Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Michael Faulkner, and so many other things. There's nothing we can't ask Grover because he is in the belly of the beast running Americans for Tax Reform every single day.
And he's a pretty smart guy, too.
Really smart guy. And a stand-up comedian. He does.
Yeah, I've heard him do some comedy.
He does stand-up. 5:45, Chris, of course, will peruse the stack of stuff, make sure we know everything we need to know we may have missed, and we'll hand you off to Larry Connors, USA, followed by Jamie Allman of the Allman Report. Oh, my goodness, 4:23. We better get to a quick break here. We've got Steve Bucci standing by to speak with us about Russia, Ukraine, China, Israel, Hamas, terrorism, and more. All that next on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
By its adoption of House Resolution 189, the House has resolved that Representative Al Green be censured.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A bigger warm-up on the way for Friday. Overnight low 40 degrees. Slight chance for a brief shower in the morning. About 20% chance, though. And then in the afternoon, partly cloudy and a big warm-up, a high of 66. There's a chance for a couple showers in the evening and nighttime. They'll be light and brief, nothing big, but you may see a little light rain Friday night. It'll be out by daybreak on Saturday. Saturday, a little cooler, high 54, partly to mostly sunny. Sunday, warmer 62 and sunny skies for a nice weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
The Right Mind Show with Todd Showalter.
Hey, everybody, it's your buddy Todd Showalter. Join me and my buddy Joey V for The Right Mind Show when we put the fun in our dysfunctional world.
The Right Mind Show with Todd Showalter. Saturday evenings at 5 on News Talk STL.
I want you to go to this website. I want you to go to hydrodynamicscore.com. I'm looking at it right now. Man, what a slick website. In 5 seconds, you can see all the services that Hydrodynamics Core provides. They have this beautiful, slick, clean, easy to navigate website where you can see that they do lawn irrigation. They'll fix your drainage problems, lighting, outdoor lighting, hardscapes. So that's like your patios, your outdoor features, those living features. Everybody's into outdoor living now. Let's maximize our outdoor living space. Well, Hydrodynamics Core can make that a reality. Turf management. Yep. They'll make sure your grass stays as green as possible, as long as possible in our very tough, challenging 4-season climate that we have here in the Midwest. And they'll do landscape design to make sure it all fits together. All of that can be found at Hydrodynamics and on their website, hydrodynamicscore.com. Hydrodynamics has been around, get this, since 1973. I believe they are proper in saying that they are the first major commercial and residential irrigation lawn specialist company in the region. It's now being transitioned to the second generation. Spoke with the wonderful folks there a couple weeks ago. They're just awesome folks. I mean, since 1973, the first commercial residential lawn irrigation company in St. Louis has now expanded in everything I just mentioned. Lighting, drainage, hardscapes, turf management. If you've got a lawn or a yard where you're going, I have a mess here. It's a mishmash. It doesn't work together. My grass is dead over here and weeds over there. I don't like the way the home looks at night. I don't like the way that there's wet spots here and this part's too hard and dry. They can fix all of that for you. Not just an irrigation company, a lawn specialist company. They got all those services I mentioned and more. Check them out today. Hydrodynamicscore.com. Hydrodynamicscore.com. Serving St. Louis since 1973 and serving you today. Hydrodynamicscore.com.
This is Tony Colombo, and my favorite Capriotti sandwich is the cheesesteak made with American Wagyu beef from Snake River Farms, and you have to include a side of their amazing fries. I love Capriotti's, and you will too.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
Speaker Tim Jones, whoosh my speaker.
Why did the men and women who sacrificed and died for this country get one day each year, and those who have to tell us what their sexuality is get an entire month?
So instead of MAGA, they can be MAFA. Make America fabulous again.
Vic Porcelli, live and local weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
If you're considering an annuity as part of your retirement plan, we need to talk. Hi, I'm Bob Stockdale, Senior Vice President Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money Saturday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL 1019. Annuities can be a useful tool for some retirement investors, but not all annuities are created equal. Every week, we meet clients who own complex annuities that don't suit their needs and, in some cases, actively undermine their retirement plan. Before you purchase an annuity, get a second opinion from the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel. Requesting a consultation is free of charge. To request a free consultation, contact us at clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member NYSE and SIPC.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirt and gritty. Bend down, isn't it a pity? Doesn't seem to be a shadow in the city. All around, people looking half dead, walking on the sidewalk hotter than a match.
If we want to deter war with the Chinese or others, we have to be strong. And that president understands peace comes through strength. He also has a great relationship with that gentleman right there, too, Xi Jinping. So where we can partner, where we can cooperate to recognize that we don't want war with China, we don't seek that war, we will. And the president has sought historic peace and historic opportunities. But my job as the Secretary of Defense is to make sure we're ready. We need the defense spending, the capabilities, the weapons, and the posture in the Indo-Pacific, which is something we're very much focusing.
4:30 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. And Tim, it is time for our weekly roundup around the world with Steve Bucci.
Steve Bucci, visiting fellow for Special Ops at the Heritage Foundation.
Oh, yes. What were you about to ask me? Do you expect me to talk?
Steve, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, guys. It's great to be back on the show.
Excellent. We love having you. All right. You heard that clip about China. You're our military affairs guy. You don't deal with politics and trade and all of that. But I've got to ask you about this tweet that the Chinese embassy tweeted on X. They said yesterday, Steve, if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. Steve, that sounds pretty provocative. That's some serious saber rattling there.
It sure is, and that's pretty over the top. Irresponsible in my opinion. Clearly, nobody on the U.S. side is talking about going to a physical war with China. But we do need to make sure that they do understand that they're not dealing with Joe Biden anymore. And they're not going to just, we are not just going to roll over on them as he did quite often. So, this is a time where some lines are going to get drawn in the sand. And once we establish all the rules, I think everybody will behave. A trade war, that's always possible. And the Chinese fear that because they know they really can't win that one. And they're pretty sure they're probably not going to be able to win a shooting war either. They're not delusional. They know that too.
Steve, staying on the topic of China and the relations with the U.S. and their part of the world as well, it seemed like, Steve, back during the Biden administration, we were speaking with you, it seemed that, so yes, what they said is extremely provocative and extremely almost insane. But it seemed during the Biden administration, they were also taking a lot of actions to actually be provocative. Whereas over the last 45 days or so since Donald Trump has been in office, we haven't heard as much of that. Are we just not seeing those stories? Is China realizing that if they mess with the U.S. now with Trump at the helm, there's likely going to be swifter reactions versus Biden doing nothing? I guess bring us up to speed on what they're actually doing as regards to Taiwan and some of the other incidences we've heard most recently.
I have not seen any specific news saying, they're not doing anything provocative, but also we haven't really seen any stories of them doing any of the over-the-top stuff they were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't expect China just to fold up their tent and go back and behave. I think they're going to continue to push the envelope. That's kind of the way they do things. But I don't think, it's been happening anywhere near as often in the last couple of weeks since President Trump took office. And it didn't happen terribly often when he was in office before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a distinct difference. The Chinese are pretty smart fellas. They recognize there's a different sheriff in town here in Washington and that he is going to follow a different policy. Now, they'll test him, but I think they've already pretty much got his measure, and they know he is not Joe Biden. So he is not an empty suit. And they, the Chinese have a lot to lose in this. They've got incredible investments around the world. There's a lot of potential Chinese targets if something starts to happen, both targets in the economic and diplomatic sense, but also targets in the physical sense. So I think you're going to see, you're not going to see as much of this kind of rhetoric, and you're definitely not going to see as much of the provocative actions that we've seen before.
We're speaking with Steve Bucci, visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Speaking of China being provocative, you're right, Steve, of course, that they have been less provocative with the United States, but they have been provocative with our adversaries. Recently, the Chinese had war games and were shooting missiles off narrow waters between Australia and New Zealand, and they had a close encounter with a Philippines plane that the United States condemned. Your thoughts on that, sir?
That's my point. I think they're going to continue to push the envelope. They may do it in those cases. Those are all, they're not U.S. proxies, but they're allies of ours, people we care about, their security we care about. So they're going to try and push there. So it's not directly with the United States. This is out of the Iranian playbook. You get your proxies to do stuff, and then you say, "Well, I'm not threatening you, Mr. President." This is sort of a riff on that. They're pushing on people we care about, but not directly on us. So it's a little less provocative than doing it directly on U.S. forces or U.S. territories. And so it's a test. And I think if President Trump stands up to them, like I think he probably will, they will find that this is not going to be very effective and they need to stop.
Speaking to Steve Bucci, who's at the Heritage Foundation. Steve, how about an update on where we are in the Middle East as regards Israel, Hamas? We've had, I think, most of the hostages released, but isn't Hamas still holding some hostages, or more horribly, maybe the bodies of some hostages? And at what point does Netanyahu and Donald Trump's patience, do you think, run out?
Well, I think we're getting close to that point now. Most of the people that they still hold are probably not alive. There were indicators that there are some still alive, but that's sort of a speculation on the part of the intel folks in Israel and our intel people. We don't know that for sure. So they're going to keep pushing on them. You didn't see Netanyahu screaming bloody murder when it came out that we had some people talking directly to Hamas. I think because we are coordinating all those efforts. That's not President Trump just trying to ignore Netanyahu and his plans. I think all that stuff is tied together. But I'm with you. I can't imagine those two are going to maintain their patience for very much longer. If Hamas thinks they're going to be able to string them along like they did and get the kind of background support that Biden gave to Hamas by putting pressure on Israel, they're dreaming. And I think if they don't shape up pretty soon, you'll see some pressure going on Qatar, who has a lot of influence over Hamas. Definitely more pressure on Iran, who is their main source of supply and help. And I think we'll also potentially see a lot of Israeli tanks rolling back into Gaza. I hope we can avoid that, because that means we're basically saying, all right, we're not going to get these hostages back. We just need to go in, get the remains, and kill as many of these SOBs as we can. But that's a lesser form of victory if we have to lose any of the folks that are still alive. So we're gonna do what we can to get those people back, get the bodies back, but we're not going to wait forever.
Steve, it seems that the leaders of Europe have heard President Trump's message that they should be paying more for their security and being more responsible for their security. Last night, French President Emmanuel Macron said on an address last night to his nation that, quote, "I want to believe that the U.S. will stay by our side, but we have to be ready. If that isn't the case, Europe's future should not be decided in Washington or Moscow." And then you have Germany's conservative leader. He is coming in. He's the chancellor in waiting. He said that it is his absolute priority to strengthen Europe so it can, quote, achieve independence from the USA. There's also talks that we may be leaving NATO, and that may just be a negotiating tactic of President Trump. Your overall thoughts on the alliance, Steve?
I think the alliance is still fine. President Trump did this in his first term with, telling them, look, you guys either pony up or you're going to be on your own. We're not going to foot the bill, and you guys are not doing your fair share. That caused them to almost all pony up and up their spending on defense. He came in with the same message and even a little stronger because of the pushback he was getting for his efforts with Ukraine and Russia. And I think our European allies understand, we want them to be independent. We want them, if push came to shove, if we were fighting a war with China, then, and Russia started doing something, I would hope that the Europeans would be able to defend themselves without a lot of effort from the United States so that we could handle the other situation. I don't think we're quite at that point yet, but having them moving in that direction is a net positive for us. It doesn't mean we're going to abandon NATO. We still have incredible ties economically, historically, and security-wise with all of our European allies. But President Trump doesn't have unlimited patience for people that think that they're on welfare. That's not the relationship. An alliance is not, doesn't mean one country does all the work and the others get the benefit. It means a bunch of countries working together for the benefit of all. And he's going to try and make sure that that's what's happening.
Steve, Donald Trump made a bunch of announcements during his joint address to Congress the other night. One of those was to announce the arrest of the alleged top terrorist responsible for the 13 deaths, our servicemen and women, and the Afghanistan withdrawal. Steve, how important is an arrest like that? And is that, and describe why that's important for the U.S. Like, some people may think, well, what does that matter? It happened, it was over. But doesn't that help us with our intelligence gathering in that part of the world and even beyond?
Oh, yeah. You always want to get any of those guys you can get your hands on so you can squeeze them for intelligence. especially one that was an organizer of an operation like that. The other thing is they need to understand America is not just going to walk away. When somebody pokes us in the eye with a sharp stick, we're going to come and get them. We may not get them immediately. You know, the Biden administration claimed they had killed the organizer, and turned out they killed some, you know, totally innocent other person with a drone strike, trying to reestablish that they actually knew what they were doing, which just reinforced that they didn't. But we don't give up. We don't stop looking for people. We did the same thing with the guys who did the Lockerbie bombing. You know, it was years later, and suddenly somewhere in North Africa, a bunch of guys that looked an awful lot like Delta operators jumped out of a van, grabbed a guy, and brought him back to justice. You know, we don't give up. That is the message. That's the most important message to send. If you're ever going to deter these radical Islamist nut jobs, it's going to be as long as they know eventually they're going to die, or they're going to be ending up in an American jail forever and ever if they do it.
Boy, that's a good way to end this discussion today, Steve. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. Visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Have a great week and weekend, and we'll speak with you again next Thursday.
Sounds good, guys. Have a great week and stay safe.
Thank you, sir. Too. 444, and coming up, Chris's Corner, we will talk a little about the Democrats' disarray. A lot of news with that. We'll talk about the latest tariff news and the latest news regarding this administration. You are listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
An American Secret Service outfit that lives deep behind enemy lines will be your assist. The Germans call them the bastards.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First alert for Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A bigger warm-up on the way for Friday. Overnight low 40 degrees. Slight chance for a brief shower in the morning. About 20% chance, though. And then in the afternoon, partly cloudy and a big warm-up, a high of 66. There's a chance for a couple showers in the evening and nighttime. They'll be light and brief, nothing big, but you may see a little light rain Friday night. It'll be out by daybreak on Saturday. Saturday, a little cooler, high 54, partly to mostly sunny. Sunday, warmer 62 and sunny skies for a nice weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Here's my problem.
Completely agree with your sentiments.
He talks about we're divided. Well, yeah, we are. And we need to wake up as a country and realize what's going on.
1019 and 94.1.
Number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA, SIPC.
Bengal's restaurant offers an inviting atmosphere, neighborly service, and a vibrant happy hour scene, all in the heart of Warson Woods. From their kitchen to your plates, beloved comfort favorites like chicken parmesan and lasagna to steakhouse-style classics. Slide up to the vintage bar or hit the patio for happy hour specials every Tuesday through Friday. Bengal's Restaurant and Bar, 10017 Manchester Road. Check out the menu and reserve a table online at bengalsrestaurant.com.
Jewels on Hampton and St. Louis Hills is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches on site. Jewels on Hampton is a premier jeweler featuring Alvanza's jewel art designs with an exquisite selection of diamonds, semi-precious stone jewelry, and vintage watches. Their expert design team can restyle your jewelry to today's contemporary style. They also do jewelry and watch repair. Need extra cash? Jewels on Hampton is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches. Bring in your collectibles and clocks and sports memorabilia and figurines too. Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton, just 3 blocks south of Chippewa, and jewelsonhampton.com. Call them at 314-752-5000, 314-752-5000, and jewelsonhampton.com. Jewels on Hampton.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Well, I got a woman way over town that's good to me.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Say, I got a woman way over town, good to me. Oh, yeah, she give me money.
Republican Congressman James Comer of Kentucky joins us now. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley also getting into it with you.
Let me proceed. Data from Texas shows that U.S.-born Americans commit more rape and murder than immigrants.
Listen, this trend of you
Data
all
from
trying to get thrown out of committee so you can get on MSNBC is going to end. We're not going to put up with it.
This is my procedural right as a member of this committee. I will enter into the record. This is my right. Thank you.
No.
Wow.
He called that out, didn't he? This trend of trying to get on MSNBC by throwing out of committees. And, he said that to be humorous, but he's right, Tim. Once the Democrats see something successful like that, especially if it's protest oriented, they're all over it like flies on you-know-what.
Mm-hmm. So they're going to community organize instead of govern, I guess. And it's going to be all about the clicks and the eyeballs. Is this the plan for the next 2 to 4 years? I guess we'll see.
They don't have a plan, and I'm going to talk more about that on Chris's Corner.
Chris's Corner is brought to you by Elite Comfort Experts. Call 636-887-0971 or EliteComfortExperts.com.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
Tim, I've talked about it in some earlier Chris's Corners about how some of the leftist 501c4s are laying off people because they just can't raise any money. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the instruments that is used to raise money for Democratic candidates and PACs, well, they're having trouble as well. Act Blue. Act Blue, the fundraising powerhouse, faces internal chaos, and they may shut down, Tim. This is from the New York Times. The organization has plunged into turmoil with at least 7 senior officials resigning last month and remaining lawyers suggesting he faced internal retaliation. The exodus has set off deep concern about Act Blue's future. And I remember when Act Blue started a few years ago, it was a juggernaut. It was raising money left and right. No one had ever seen anything like this. And it really inspired the Republicans, the conservatives, to do something similar because Act Blue was a forerunner on this. And I think this is just a more symptom of the Democrats' problem when one of their biggest fundraising instruments may shut down. We're talking about all of this budget reconciliation mess and trying to get funding for the government. The politics of it sucks, and we as American citizens hate it. But it's also starting to affect President Trump's deportation efforts, Tim. Deportation flights to remove undocumented migrants. They're forcing to recalibrate those flights because of financial and logistical constraints. The planes they have been using, the military, are C-17 and C-130 aircraft. And, those are big, giant planes. They've been deemed inefficient and costly. And we've talked about this many times. The money for these border operations is running out. If you remember weeks earlier, Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the reasons why he wanted 2 bills is because he wanted that first bill to address border security and to pay these agents. And he warned that if that wasn't passed, that we were going to have problems at the border. Thank God that has not come to pass, because this was mentioned in the joint speech to Congress. Illegal immigration from a year ago is down 98%. That is absolutely incredible. In Culiacan, Mexico, the pressure that the president has put on the Mexico's leader is really starting to help Mexican law enforcement and the citizens there. In this article from the AP, the locals say they're grateful to have seen a shift since Trump's election with the president of Mexico. She's been getting more aggressive on the drug cartels and her predecessors. So not only, Tim, is President Trump making America great again, it looks like he's kind of almost making Mexico great again as well. We talked about it the other day, how there was a Republican congresswoman who talked about these raids of these illegal aliens was terrible. These are people that are here. They don't have a criminal record. We shouldn't be harassing them. We should not be getting rid of them. And I've said many, many times, Tim, that if these folks coming across the border, risking their lives, know that there are no jobs here, then why would you do that? And one of the remedies I've said for years is that not only deport the illegal aliens back home, but also the companies, the CEOs that are responsible for hiring these people, not only should they have civil fines, they should also have criminal implications with this, that if you're CEO and your company is knowingly hiring illegal aliens, you should do some jail time. Anyone associated with that. Well, I've said all that to say this, that the Associated General Contractors of America, which is generally a conservative leaning building, they're the contractors, they're generally conservative leaning. They have said that, quote, this is from Brian Termale. He's their vice president of public affairs and workforce. He said, rumors of raids have more impact at this point than the raid themselves. So he is basically saying that these raids into these workplaces is a terrible thing. I think when you look at this organization, we're talking about people that are working on drywall and construction, people that are working on roofs. We know that some of that labor, when it's legal, is cheaper than the prevailing wage that's being paid in that area. Illegally, you have clueless on what they're paying. But it's kind of disconcerting to see an American organization here that's looking out for the contractors. I get that. Seem to be wanting to look the other way when it comes to illegal aliens. And that is a bit upsetting to me. There is a draft that the Wall Street Journal has seen from the president of the United States that he's going to release real soon. It says, quote, this order, Tim, is to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the education department based on the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law. Wall Street Journal is reporting that is the executive order, so I trust them. That is something that's coming out. So Trump is not messing around, and he is really challenging Congress and challenging, does he have the authority as the chief executive to shut down these agencies. And finally, Tim, all throughout the first term, we heard Russia. We know it's a hoax. We know that everything associated with is that Hillary Clinton was the real one that was in charge of all this. So you would think that we've beat this horse not only into the ground, but under the ground. We would let the whole conspiracy, Trump is a foreign agent trope go. They won't. The New York Times has a story out. The headline, Tim, is who paid for Trump's transition to power? The donors are still unknown. After 6 weeks in office, President Trump has not disclosed the names of the donors who paid for his transition planning, despite a public pledge to do so. A spokesperson for the General Services Administration, which works closely with the presidential transitions, said in a statement that the Trump-Biden transition team is not required to publicly disclose transition-related donations. So I think they're trying to insinuate that the transition was paid by Russian oligarchs. And that is Chris's corner.
He's a puppet of Putin.
He's a puppet of Putin because we don't know who paid for the transition. You know that's going to be the narrative. All right, Tim, 507, Speaker Some Speech.
It's a life well lived in the Lou and beyond.
And at 524, we will speak with the great Grover Norquit, President of Americans for Tax Reform. We'll talk about the president's tax cuts. Listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Just for me.
Hey, it's Susie Moore to tell you about Michael's Flooring. Michael's is known for quality, variety, and an all-around great experience. Installing new flooring should be exciting, not a hassle you dread. Michael's has solved that, and their long list of happy repeat customers is proof. They've been locally owned and operated for more than 30 years. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, ceramic tile, it doesn't matter. Michael's Flooring, with 3 locations, St. Peter's, Darting Prairie, and Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloored.com. That's igotfloored.com.
Sundays at 5 on News Talk STL.
All your hard-earned tax dollars and mine are going to fund illegal aliens who come across the border penniless, jobless, skillless, and they're given a cell phone, an identity, and a cash stipend every month.
Mark McCloskey on fire.
That beats your Social Security income if you should have the good nature to work your ass off your whole life and retire.
Mark McCloskey on fire. Sundays at 5 on News Talk STL. Brought to you in part by Modern Weapon Systems in Fenton.
At Complete Forestry Mulching, we're not just clearing land, we're creating possibilities. Brian Akers, owner and longtime supporter of News Talk STL, and our team helps property owners reclaim their land by eliminating invasive species and unwanted brush. Whether you're creating hunting paths, expandable usable space, or establishing clear property lines, we'll transform challenging terrain into pristine landscapes. Our state-of-the-art equipment doesn't just clear, it creates a protective layer of natural mulch, preventing erosion and keeping your soil healthy for years to come. Take control of your property today and save $500 on a full day of forestry mulching services. But hurry, this offer won't last long. Call Complete Forestry Mulching at 314-805-9902, 314-805-9902, or find us on Facebook. Complete Forestry Mulching. Together, let's clear the path to your property's future.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9 94.1 and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Trump envoy Keith Kellogg says Ukraine can only blame itself for the pause on U.S. military aid and intelligence sharing after last week's Oval Office blow-up between Presidents Zelensky and Trump.
You don't try to challenge the President of the United States in the Oval Office that, in fact, you need to side with me and not the Russians. You don't become an independent interlocutor if you look at something like that. And he was forewarned. It's not like President Zelensky was not made aware that this is what we wanted out of the Ukrainians, to basically say, go here, it sets the next stage, it opens up, it goes forward.
Meanwhile, European Union leaders back new defense spending plans aimed at freeing up billions of euros for the continent's security after the Trump administration signaled that Europe would have to fend for itself in the future. The U.S. House has voted to censure Congressman Al Green for disrupting President Trump's address to Congress.
The Texas Democrat offered no regrets when he explained his actions on the House floor during the president's speech on Tuesday night. He said he'd do it again. The resolution against Green was approved on a mostly party line vote of 224 to 198, with some Democrats crossing over. House Speaker Mike Johnson had Green removed from the chamber Tuesday night in the early moments of the president's speech. The resolution expresses displeasure at the congressman's actions, but does not affect rights or privileges as a member of the House. George Williams reporting.
President Trump on Thursday postponed 25% tariffs on many imports from Mexico and some imports from Canada for a month, amid widespread fears of the economic fallout from a broader trade war. The White House insists its tariffs are about stopping the smuggling of fentanyl. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 536 points, the Nasdaq dropped 483. More at townhall.com.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten. Without Trinity support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976. That's 1-800-990-6976.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A bigger warm-up on the way for Friday. Overnight low 40 degrees. Slight chance for a brief shower in the morning. About 20% chance, though. And then in the afternoon, partly cloudy and a big warm-up, a high of 66. There's a chance for a couple showers in the evening and nighttime. They'll be light and brief, nothing big, but you may see a little light rain Friday night. It'll be out by daybreak on Saturday. Saturday, a little cooler, high 54, partly to mostly sunny. Sunday, warmer 62 and sunny skies for a nice weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Hi, this is Missouri Lieutenant Governor David Wassinger. Hey, I wanted to invite you to the annual Missouri State Lincoln Days occurring on March 7th through the 9th. I plan on being there to celebrate President Trump's huge victory, and we swept the state with statewide elected officials. I also hope to be there. You can register at mogop.org. It's mogop.org. Look forward to seeing you on March 7th through the 9th in St. Louis. Let's make Missouri great again.
Learn more and get tickets at mogop.org.
Paid for by the Missouri Republican Party. Jennifer Finch, Treasurer.
Attention, reptile lovers. Ready to discover your next scaly friend? Welcome to the Show Me Reptile Shop, your ultimate destination for fascinating reptiles and exotic pets, with 3 convenient locations in Troy, St. Peters, and Springfield. We have an amazing selection of snakes, lizards, turtles, and more. Whether you're a seasoned herpetologist or a curious beginner, we've got the perfect pet waiting for you. Show Me Reptile Shop. Visit us in Troy, St. Peters, or Springfield, and online at showmereptileshow.com.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Live and local.
Welcome home. And whoosh, sitting in traffic, stuck in a jam, and being entertained by Vic and thunder-stealing Ken.
This is News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
Lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here? As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
These are migrants who re-offended in Massachusetts after they ignored ICE detainer requests. What do you have to say to the governor of Massachusetts, Tom?
Look, I forgot more about this issue than she'll ever know, first of all. Second of all, I am bringing hell to Boston. I'm bringing hell to illegal aliens that rape children. And she should be bringing hell to the same population.
Reminds me of that famous line from the Wyatt Earp movie featuring, I know there's been a lot of Wyatt Earp movies. Joel, you know the one I'm talking about with Doc Holliday was played by Kurt Russell? The Kurt Russell Wyatt Earp.
Tombstone.
Tombstone. In Tombstone, Chris, Wyatt Earp says something about I'm riding out and I'm bringing hell with me or something like that. So just like Tom Homan there, who's going to bring it to all of these sanctuary city urban areas that have destroyed themselves by allowing unfettered, unmitigated illegal immigration.
And speaking of sanctuary cities, the mayors of those 4 major cities, Boston, New York City, Denver, and Chicago, they were before a House panel yesterday, and they took a barrage of questions for the congressman. And even after, people are saying this is an 80-20 issue for Republicans and conservatives, 80% in support. But what you saw was all 4 of those mayors digging in instead of trying to moderate their views, which, Mayor Adams, of course, changed his views because he's got a pardon hanging over his head. But the others, they dug in, Tim.
I know. And it's on another 80-20 issue. I found the quote. Kurt Russell in Tombstone says, "You tell him I'm coming and hell's coming with me. You hear? Hell's coming with me." You could just hear Tom Homan. You can just hear Tom Homan saying that as he's riding into Boston. And you look, Chris, I was actually amazed because I thought Donald Trump was just quintessential Donald Trump in the joint address, and therefore the Democrats and the left and the independents wouldn't have liked his address very much. But 76% of Americans, according to the CBS poll, thought it was great. 69% according to CNN. People like hearing that we're a nation of law and order once again, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, he had a lot of positives to point out, too, when it came to the border. He touted some of his economic policies, even though he said the tariffs may be have some short-term pain associated with them. He said, just stick with me. He talked about all of the industries, such as the computer chip companies and not IBM, but Apple, that were coming back to the United States. So the Democrats just made a terrible mistake of doing what they did, sitting on their hands. And as I said yesterday, they basically just fell into his trap.
Yeah, they really did. And they've doubled and tripled down. And I think the American people are looking at their reactions following the joint address and going, what are these? A bunch of kindergartners? It's like the Republicans aren't going to do everything right. That's for sure. And they're going to have mistakes and they're going to have problems. They have a very slim majority in the House. Things are going to be very difficult. But I think the American people are like, okay, they're trying to govern. And all the Democrats are doing is throwing temper tantrums and having pep rallies.
That's why I'm so hoping that Republicans can stick together in the House and pass this long-term CER with Republicans only and not needing any Democrats, because that will put so much pressure on Senate Democrats to come across the aisle and get to the 60 vote threshold so this can get to a final vote. And Tim, there's going to be such tremendous pressure on them from their base of not giving in to Doge and Musk and the Republicans and to shut the government down. They may do it. And as I said yesterday with Congressman Burleson, this may be the first time ever Republicans actually may win a government shutdown debate this time around if they play their cards right.
You're right. They just might. They seem to have the wind in their sails. And look, I know the last few days, the Democrats have been making a lot of hay about the tariffs and the market. The market was down big again today. Look, if this goes on for a long time, yes, it's going to become a problem for Trump and Republicans. If it's short term, then Donald Trump's going to be able to say, look, short-term pain, long-term gain. I had to do a lot of work to shift this around. We had 4 years of multi-trillion-dollar spending, of increased interest rates and inflation rates. So I don't know what that time frame is, but if we start coming out of these economic doldrums around summertime or so, and people are starting to feel good heading into the fall and into the Christmas holidays next year, if he has a good first year, then you're right. Yeah. Democrats may be in a real trick box. Republicans may be able to turn the tables on history and have a better midterm than what you usually have, which is not a good midterm when you're the party in power.
But there is that looming cloud overhead of the economy possibly slowing down because of tariffs. And I think that's part of the reason why the president has put on hold the tariffs that go to Mexico and Canada. He's put those off for 30 days. Still have the tariffs on China. And he also has taken off those tariffs on the automobile industry, which added an extra 25%. So I think he recognizes the potential it could have on the economy. It gives them extra 30 days to negotiate. And hopefully we can come out with a deal that, of course, is the best for the United States, but for the other two countries involved.
If Trump and Republicans can cut taxes this year and ultimately, in the long term, lower all of the tariffs, if you have lower tariffs and lower taxes, this economy is going to boom because inflation is going to come down, mortgage rates, the housing industry has really been under pressure the last few years. If all of that can be unleashed, and a lot of that also has to do with the energy sector, right? If they can get all that going in the right direction, and I just mentioned a whole string of things there that have to go the right way, but if they can, then you're going to see the American economy take off like it did in the first Trump term.
I like the idea that the Trump administration is proposing of the reciprocal tariffs, that whatever a foreign country is charging us in tariffs, we charge them the exact same price. So you don't have us being having low tariffs for our goods, but goods that we send over, they have very, very high tariffs. I mean, that sounds fair.
Steven.
Yeah, whatever your tariffs is, we're going to reciprocate and have the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair trade policy.
Yes, as equal and as low as possible. That is where we want to eventually end up. We got a lot of show to get to this hour. We're going to have the speaker's stump speech in just a second. Grover Norquit, president of Americans for Tax Reform, he can shed a lot of analytical light on the conversation Chris and I just had about the tariffs, about the one big beautiful bill that the House has passed. Will the Senate be able to come to a compromise position on that or not? Some of these cabinet picks like Treasury and the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Michael Faulkender, who was just named, and so much more. Grover joining us at 5:24, president, founder of Americans for Tax Reform, ATR.org. Tomorrow's Friday already. Friday indeed. And it's going to be a celebratory Friday because Chris and I and even Joey gets to come out of his cage. We're going to let him across the street. In fact, Joey, we're going to make you work harder on a Friday because you're going to have to set everything up for us.
Lincoln Days. Oh, I look forward to it every year. I'm glad I'm not driving in a snowstorm.
That's
Kansas
true.
City like
That's
last
true.
year. I saw cars in ditches the
I remember
entire
that.
way last year. So this one's across the street. So thanks for making that happen.
You're just going to load up your little cart and drag it up the road?
Yeah, just dolly it uphill.
And that's a good reminder. I thought you were talking about we were going to celebrate the end of daylight savings time this weekend. I thought that was what.
Great reminder.
I thought that's what we were celebrating.
Great
but I was
reminder.
getting happy.
Unfortunately, everyone's going to lose an hour of sleep
I
on
don't
Saturday
care.
night.
I
We're
don't
going to
care.
have light in the evening when Chris and I
Yes.
leave the studio. I'm so tired of leaving the studio. We've been leaving the studio in the dark, Chris, for it seems like 8 months. It seems like it's been forever. So we're going to get an hour of daylight transferred from the morning to the evening, and the days themselves are going to keep getting longer.
But it's almost like, you remember when you were in elementary school and you had like a project where you had to plant something and you watered it.
Yes.
Remember that? You'd water it
Yes.
and you'd water it and
Yes.
water it. And after about a couple of weeks, you see that little tiny plant come up. It's been kind of like that the last month or so with the light. I mean, in December, November, it's completely dark when we leave.
Pitch black.
But if you notice the last few weeks, it's 6 o'clock when the show's over. It's been a little bit lighter, or a little bit lighter. So that was kind of my, watching the shoots spring up when you had that science project. And
A little bit of rose in the sky.
Yeah.
And when we leave on Monday, it's going to be daylight.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful.
Did you ever do the thing where you put the, what is that bean in your mouth? And it actually it sprouts if you keep it in your mouth for like 2 minutes. A lima
I
bean.
haven't done that. Oh, lima bean will do that?
If you put a lima bean in your mouth, the heat and the fermentation or whatever,
It'll pop.
It'll actually, the little green leaf will start to come out.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know why I brought
God
that
is
up.
amazing.
Yeah.
God is amazing. It's really fantastic. Hey, so tomorrow, Friday, Chris, Joey, we're going to be live at Lincoln Days. Look, you don't have to be like a hardcore card-carrying Republican, the party stuff. If you are, that's great. You'll all be there. But just so you know, our everyday listeners, you're very important people to us. If you want to stop by and see us, you can do that, right? You don't have to have a special pass or anything. Stop by and see Chris and I at Lincoln Days. We're right here in town, the Sheraton Westport Chalet. Those Sheraton Westport Chalet. All details, newstalkstl.com. And if you want to meet some of these folks that Chris and I speak with all the time, the statewide elected officials, the representatives, the senators, the Congress critters, as Mike Ferguson calls them, they'll all be there as well. Tomorrow evening, Chris and I broadcasting, normal time, 4 to 6 p.m., special on-location edition of the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show live from Lincoln Days. And if you're heading to Lincoln Days, listen to us on the app. The app is fantastic. It's new and it's improved. If you want to sign up for all the extra goodies, you may. You don't have to. You can just press the play button, and you don't have to do any of the notification stuff. But if you do, there's a lot of extra bonus features. It's really fantastic. Get access to a lot of cool stuff. Download the app from the iPhone or the Android store.
Joey's usually in charge of this when we do the remote broadcast, but I'm just curious, Joey, especially since this is Labor Day, the Lincoln Days, will we have some News Talk STL swag to possibly give away at our table?
Yeah, anything that you have in the bottom of your car, just where there's just wrappers of Tootsie Rolls. Everyone gets a free Tootsie Roll
Like
wrapper
a
from Chris.
T-shirt or a cup holder? Or...
We have tons of coasters and bumper stickers we can hand out, so
Okay.
no problem.
All right, we'll have some stuff indeed. All right, we're going to talk to Grover Norquist in a minute. And in the meantime, before we get to that, I have a very special edition of today's Speaker Stump Speech. I'm going to talk about a life well lived in the Lou and beyond.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
So I mentioned this briefly yesterday, and I wanted to highlight it again today because it truly was a celebration of a life well lived that I attended and participated in today. My very good friend from high school, the first kid that I really became friends with at St. Louis University High back in 1985. I know that sounds like the Stone Ages. My very first week, I ran into this kid named Kurt Richards. No D there. It's old French spelling, Richars, Kurt Richards. Kurt said it used to be pronounced Richards back in the day. So I ran into this kid, Kurt Richards. Kurt and I couldn't have been more different. He was tall. I'm not. He was from the city. I'm from the country. Kurt's a huge extrovert. I'm believe it or not, even though I talk on the radio today, I'm a little more introverted. Kurt was definitely more of an artistic kind of guy. Kurt's a really good sketch artist. Probably why he went into marketing and public relations, very creative guy. I was more of the language and the verbal nerd, the English literature, the bookish kind of kid. So we were not similar at all in many respects, although we did share a lot of similarities that we learned over the years. We're both right-thinking Americans. Kurt's about as conservative as I am and sometimes more. We both came from awesome families. Kurt very close to his family. I very close to mine. Have great parents, siblings, and so on and so forth. Shortly after I met my buddy Kurt, I met his family, his mom and dad, Elmer and Amelia. And they became much more than just the parents of one of my best friends from high school. They became really part of my family, I of theirs. My folks got to know them over the years as well. Elmer Richards loved animals, loved dogs. My dad's a veterinarian. And so when they would get together every so often, they had a lot to talk about because Elmer's favorite pet of choice, Labrador Retriever. My dad always said as a veterinarian, that is truly man's best friend is the retrievers and especially the Labradors. So we had so much in common we learned over the years. Elmer Dennis Richards, born August 23rd, 1938, passed away this past Saturday, March 1st, 2025. 87 years old and a true life well lived. I had a great experience today, a sad experience. It was melancholy, but it was also heartwarming. I went to a part of the city today that I don't visit frequently, and although I spent a great amount of time there back in my high school years, as I mentioned, Kurt and I became good friends. He came out to Eureka a lot. Like I mentioned, like I said, I'm a hillbilly from the sticks. He's a city kid. He spent a lot of time in Eureka. I spent a lot of time in South St. Louis. So that's where I went this morning. I went down to South St. Louis, went down to Francis Park. Right on the edge of Francis Park on kind of that northwest side is St. Gabe's Parish, St. Gabriel's. Big part of our lives back then. It's where the Richards made their home parish. And in fact, Kurt's parents and then Kurt and his wife, Brooke, they lived right next door to St. Gabe's. There's this big 4-family flat that I think the Richards owned for a long time, and I think they lived in, and then Kurt and his wife and his family lived there for a while. So all just very familiar territory. It was very, in the midst of all of the grief and the pain and the loss, at the same time, that feeling of warmth and comfort and familiarity and of all those great memories just washing over you from that time. And so sitting in that church listening to the family and the pastor talk about Elmer, even though it was tough, even though it was difficult, even though many tears were shed by everyone there, everyone also had a smile on their face because it was truly a life well lived. The title of the sermon was magnanimity, a word that we don't hear much. It's actually kind of gone out of vogue. It comes from the old Latin word magnanimous. And I looked that up because I remember the priest said today from the Latin from which it came. And the Latin from which it came was magnanimus, M-U-S, magnus meaning great, and animus meaning soul, great soul. That really defined Elmer Richards. Elmer was a guy, he was a gentle giant. He was a big man back in his heyday. But he was also a quiet guy, a thoughtful guy, reflective guy, but very direct. You knew exactly where Elmer stood on every single issue. And he had tons of great phrases and sayings and cliches. One of the things that was mentioned today was that he always made sure to tell his wife, his sons, his friends, his families, don't get too wrapped around the axle on anything. Don't sweat the small stuff every day. And just remember, most of it is small stuff. Live for the big moments in life. Live for those big experiences. Live for those normal experiences with your family, with your friends. So we had that experience in that part of town. And then we went a couple blocks away to another favorite haunt of the Richards family that they probably went to a bazillion times there in South St. Louis, a part of town that is still very, very much like it probably used to be over the last, 150 years or so. Very neighborhoody, very comfortable. We went to Pietro's Restaurant, one of the famous Italian restaurants on the edge of the hill. And there we heard a lot of the other family members tell their stories of Elmer. My memories of Elmer were he was always a welcoming guy. Elmer knew not an enemy. And as one of his oldest son's best friends, I became a great friend to Elmer as well. And one of the things I loved about him, and I mentioned this earlier in the show, there's a lot of people that kind of pretend to be interested in what you do or do not do in life. Elmer took a real serious interest in what I was doing. He was fascinated by the fact that he knew someone who was in elected politics and then remained very active in the political world. And every time I'd run into Elmer, even up to the most recent years, and he was with it till the very end. His body just eventually, gave out at the age of 87. He'd always ask me, Tim, what's going on with this? Or explain that to me. Or what's happening here? Man, isn't it great that Donald Trump just won? I'm so glad that Elmer got to see Trump's victory. And he was genuinely interested in what I thought about the political and public policy world. Elmer was like that with everyone. He made you feel so at home. He was such a gentle guy. He always had a pipe. He always had a pipe in one hand and the dogs near him in the other. We've really lost a great one here, and he's someone that will be very missed. On my way out of the restaurant this afternoon, I hadn't yet talked to Amelia, Elmer's wife of, what did they say, 60 years this year. And I made sure to find her and to stop. And also just a wonderful lady. And she had a big beaming smile on her face when she saw me. And she said, Tim, Elmer always enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm so glad you were able to make it today. I said, no. I'm glad I got to see you all and hear, again, the great guy that I knew. Elmer Dennis Richards, a very good friend indeed, a great soul. May he rest in peace. And that's the stump speech for today.
That is a great tribute, and that's what we all should aspire to, is to, and when we move on, and even when we're still alive, to have someone that was a mentor or mentee to have an impact on your life all these years, where you remember him fondly like that. That's a life well lived.
Everybody you talked about the impact that they had on his life. He was very proud of his family. He was very proud of his career. He was the vice president for public relations at the old Ralston Purina company. He was a huge fraternity guy. He was a Kappa Sig. He went to Mizzou, and both of his sons became Kappa Sigs, but he never ended giving Kurt trouble for not going to Mizzou and instead going to, guess where? KU.
Oh, wow.
KU.
Yeah.
So a lot of jokes were said about that. But, whether it was the fraternity, whether it was his professional career, whether it was his community writ large, whether it was his family, I mean, this is one of those guys, Chris, that nobody had ever had a negative word to say about. He was just a great man and a gentle soul. So direct guy, though, too. You know exactly where he stood on politics, and he was one of us. All right. Hey, we're going to get to a break here, and we're going to speak with another great guy, Grover Norquit. Grover's the president, the founder of Americans for Tax Reform. We're going to talk about the tariffs, the tax cuts, the reconciliation bills, and so much more when we return on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. This is 101.9. It's 94.1. It's News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First alert for Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A bigger warm-up on the way for Friday. Overnight low 40 degrees. Slight chance for a brief shower in the morning. About 20% chance, though. And then in the afternoon, partly cloudy and a big warm-up, a high of 66. There's a chance for a couple showers in the evening and nighttime. They'll be light and brief, nothing big, but you may see a little light rain Friday night. It'll be out by daybreak on Saturday. Saturday, a little cooler, high 54, partly to mostly sunny. Sunday, warmer 62 and sunny skies for a nice weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
News, analysis, and opinion.
Let the American people see what's going on here.
News Talk STL.
Pay close attention. St. Louis is number one.
Bottom line is this. St. Louis is number one.
For conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
There's no doubt that these are uncertain times right now. We've got rising prices on things like eggs. We've got tariffs. You know, it's just a time of uncertainty. But if you're looking to bring your money a little closer to where you are, and you're looking for a bank that has stability and strength and where service matters, we tell you about my friends over at Royal Banks of Missouri. They're locally owned and operated, and they've been in business since 1964. And as I said, Royal Banks has some of the highest financial ratings in St. Louis for stability and strength. I bet you they have one near you. There are 17 convenient locations across the metro area, including up in Northeast Missouri, in Rawls and in Rawls County and in Hannibal, across the river in Illinois, in Jerseyville and Granite City, and two locations and in St. Charles. They also have over 200 ATMs across the Midwest, so you will enjoy free access to your money wherever you go. Hey, are you a busy person and you need banking on your schedule? You can try their interactive teller machines, their ITMs, where you can connect with a live banker weekdays from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. They can help you with all of your financial needs, whether you need auto loans, home mortgages, online and mobile banking, plus wealth management services. Royal Banks has everything you need. Discover their personal service that sets them apart. Visit royalbanksofmo.com. royalbanksofmo.com today. Royal Banks of Missouri, the community bank for your community.
Hey, Columbo here for Rockwood Charcoal. Rockwood is made from 100% pure Missouri oak and hickory, so you're cooking with the best and supporting local industry and a local business all at once. There's over 100 area Rockwood retailers. Find yours at rockwoodcharcoal.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Got a great fun idea for you. The Oak Street Inn and Lounge Speakeasy, now open, but you need a passcode to get in. Easy to get. Just visit the Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. I got my code. Get yours. We'll gather at the Speakeasy, Oak Street Inn and Lounge in Cottleville. Plus, enjoy some fine dining. Visit the Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook for your Speakeasy passcode. Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. Get your code now.
Connor Roofing, you can count on Connor. Connor Roofing is now a two-time winner of the National Best of the Best Award for customer satisfaction for roofing, storm damage restoration, siding, gutters, both residential and commercial. Please visit ConnorRoofing.com for an estimate. And remember, you can count on Connor.
Let's get together and celebrate our great victories. Tim Jones here, inviting you to join News Talk STL and all of our conservative friends on Friday, March 21st at Old Hickory Golf Club in St. Charles for the Lincoln Trump Dinner. Cocktails, dinner, lots of great speakers, and more. Log on to stcharlesgop.com for details and to purchase tickets. The 2025 St. Charles County Lincoln Trump Dinner, March 21st, stcharlesgop.com, stcharlesgop.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Elon Musk is chipping away at his goal of $1 trillion in government spending cuts. And he laid out Doge's strategies during closed-door meetings in Washington yesterday.
Musk telling the roughly 40 senators that Doge's efforts are saving about $4 million per day. He says they've already cut $105 billion in wasteful spending. That breaks down to over $650 per taxpayer.
Mr. Musk, what was your message in there to House Republicans?
There's a lot of opportunity to improve expenditures in the government, and then we're making good progress there.
Let's talk Doge, tax cuts, and more with our next guest, Grover Norquit, the founder, the president of Americans for Tax Reform. You see him frequently up on the big box. We've got him here today on News Talk STL. Grover, good afternoon. Welcome back to the program.
Absolutely. Good to be with you. I am here in D.C. watching our money be wasted. So,
Yes, indeed. Grover, tell us.
Got to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad you're doing it. So, Grover, these numbers that are coming out of Elon Musk's efforts, they almost seem unreal. They're so large. Grover, is there that much waste, fraud, abuse, or are the numbers even higher and Elon Musk and his pack of super nerds are just scratching the surface?
Well, there are two issues. Are they doing what they said they were doing, right? We're going to send a check to somebody and you send them 3 checks. That's waste.
Mm-hmm.
It may be fraud if the person submitted 3 times. But then there's some things that you're sending a check to somebody once and it is a waste of money because we don't need that many people at the IRS. And you've got X number of thousand extra people, all of making well over $100,000 in terms of benefits and costs and pension and whatnot. So the number gets particularly large when you go from something that violates even the rules set up by the government as to what they think they're doing. You know, we're going to keep people from starving and hand out condoms or something. You know, they've been doing a lot of things that don't fit into the category of what they were telling the American people they were doing. So when COVID was going on, there were studies by the government itself that said maybe 20% of the checks went out incorrectly to people that shouldn't have been getting them, to people who weren't American citizens, to people who didn't live here. And I met with a fellow who came in on how to fix that. And he said, people were sending in pictures of here's my picture of me to prove I'm me. And there'd be a mask on the person, literally a mask. And this has been approved. Okay. So at some point you wonder, somebody at both ends of this process on the take, or, you know, are they cheating or are they just so incompetent and lazy that they're just clicking the thing, yes, 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 yes. But that was an estimate of 20%. And people looking at it said that was about right. Later, they think they tightened it up a bit. But that's a project. They talk regularly on food stamps being 15, 20% or more outside of what the law states. Now, you could also, people get food stamps that shouldn't get food stamps because they can make enough money on their own. They can, but they're also the ones who shouldn't, by the law, shouldn't be getting it. So, yes, there is a great deal of things that if an average American taxpayer looked at it, they would say the government ought not to be writing that check to that person. And they would say that many, many times as they looked at everything.
Grover, the Congressional Budget Office, which of course touts itself as nonpartisan, has done an analysis of the House's GOP blueprint, and they say that it is impossible to reach $880 billion in savings without cutting Medicaid. Is there that much fraud and abuse in Medicaid to reach $880 billion?
Well, when we looked to block grant Medicaid to the states, when Trump was president the first time, and there was that vote that John McCain, Senator McCain from Arizona, voted no, and so it didn't happen. By one vote, it failed. They were going to block grant Medicaid to states and say the states will now run Medicaid. They'll set up the rules on how they do it. They'll check for fraud and can benefit if they find fraud. We're not going to claw it back or something. And this will only grow with inflation plus population. Well, if you do that, that was about $1 trillion over a decade in projected savings. So there are significant savings simply by limiting the growth of some of these entitlements, not cutting anything, limiting the growth. And that also means you go in, you find out where fraud is. This is exactly what happened with aid to families with dependent children that Clinton signed. A Democrat president signed that, block granting it to the states. A Republican Congress passed it. Democrat president signed it. It's not too weird for words. It's a very reasonable approach. It was one recommended by Reagan in 1972, 74, for crying out loud. This is an idea that's been around for a while. And he did block grant many smaller programs when he was when he was the president. So, you can save a lot of money over time because these programs are all growing so rapidly beyond anything that's reasonable.
Speaking to Grover Norquist, founder, president of Americans for Tax Reform, ATR.org, fantastic website for Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, how about the one big beautiful bill? I know you're following this extremely closely. Grover, can you explain, I know you will, how critically important it is to renew the Tax Cut and Jobs Act this year because of the limited time frame that any party in power has these days when they get elected on the federal level? And could you give us a status from all you've heard from the folks I know you speak with on a daily basis as to how the progress is being made on the bill that the House passed last week?
Things look good. I believe we will get the tax cut that was passed, the Republican tax cut passed in 2017, that it will be passed again, that it will be made permanent, that there will be no tax increases in there to pay for anything, and that there'll be, in fact, some additional tax cuts. We are on track to accomplish that. And the reason why a lot of Republicans who sometimes like to sit on the corner and, I don't want to do this, I don't want to vote, not perfect, why they've come together and said this is going to pass is because they realize that if they don't pass this the extension of the tax reduction, they don't stop the tax increase, okay? There's a $4 or $5 trillion tax increase coming over the next decade, unless we continue present policy and make it permanent. If you do, then businesses will say, I now know what to expect if I hire a new person. I know what to expect in my own taxes. I know what to expect in expensing when I invest for to create new jobs and build new factories and so on. I understand I'll be able to depreciate it immediately, not long, not depreciation schedules. You can expense it immediately. So then people will decide now to start investing and hiring, which is what you want. You don't want to wait till later in the year and have people go, oh, now I see what they passed. Now I'll do something. Well, that's, you wait 6 months and you've delayed the recovery. This happened to President Trump in 2017. His bill in 2017, the legislation he and the Republican House and Senate worked on, didn't get passed until December 22nd of 2017. Didn't take effect until January 1st of 2018. What happened? Well, what happened was that the recovery went gangbusters in 2019, absolute gangbusters in 2019. 2019 is a year after we lost control of the House and lost 40 seats in the House. You can't delay the tax cuts or you will lose control of the House. So even some of the odd ducks who sometimes like to go, I vote no just to be annoying, they get the joke. They realize that they become completely irrelevant in the process. And if you're in the minority in the House, you really don't. You might as well not show up for work because you don't get to do anything interesting or dangerous or good. So the Republicans are united to get this bill passed soon, quickly. And as the president said in his speech the other night, he wants it to take effect January of this year, meaning like a couple months ago. So that everyone should know that if, let's say we didn't get it done in April, it got done in May. Everybody needs to know now that this bill will go into effect back to January. So you make an investment today, you make an investment last month, it gets expensed, not along depreciation schedule. So go ahead and make those investments, hire those new people now.
Grover House Ways and Means Chairman Jason Smith, who is, of course, here from Missouri, has said
he's wonderful.
He's
great.
He is. He said the $4.5 trillion that is included in this blueprint will not cover all of the tax cuts that the president wants, including no taxes on tips and wages and other things. Where do you see this ending up eventually?
Well, I think we'll see the bill as passed in 2017 will be completely made permanent out into the future. Probably they will add, some of this is going to be done last minute as they see what we have room for, but they'll probably almost certainly will include no tax on tips. It may include taking the business tax down to 15%. That's what China has, for crying out loud. I don't know why we would want to be up at 21, 25. So there are a couple of things that he's mentioned that he'd like to do. I just don't know that we fit them in this year. Not taxing overtime, that's something I think we could do, but I'm not sure it's likely to happen this year. Again, we can do one of these bills every year. An idea that's being promoted today that doesn't get done, an additional tax cut that doesn't get done, may well be something we do next year or the year after.
Grover, what else do you think they might, or what should they be tackling on Capitol Hill? Is the one big beautiful bill going to be the extent of the heavy lift this year because of the limitations with the Senate, with the 60 vote threshold? Is there anything else positive they can do, or anything else the president can assist with?
The one big beautiful bill is the one big thing. The president can do things by executive order. He can challenge some things in court. There's some, powers that have been taken from the presidency and given to the bureaucracy. And the answer is that should be put back in the president to an elected official's hands, not into some bureaucrat's hands. People talk about the president wanting to have too much power. He's taking power away from an unelected bureaucracy. That is some munchkin goes, I'm going to make this decision on sending money to some lady, almost governor from, billions of dollars to go to a slush fund for politics. No, that decision should be made by a president. So you can be mad at him if he does a bad decision, and you can be happy with him if he makes a good decision, but you can't vote against a bureaucrat. So watch for things where they'll go to court and say, we think this is wrong, we think this is unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court has made it clear, bureaucrats and the fourth estate, the unelected bureaucracy, is not in the Constitution. It's not to be found in the Constitution. There is no such thing as an FCC or SEC or any of those things in the Constitution, not even a way to structure it. The president, like the governor, should be responsible for the people who get hired and do things in the executive, and the laws should be passed by Congress. Some of these laws or edicts are passed by bureaucrats. We get elected to nothing. So actually, we're restoring democracy and the Constitution here in Washington, D.C. And it's funny when the left says, well, if we don't like it, we'll say it's not democratic. So therefore, we want all the power in the bureaucracy because they're left-wingers and they've been coming in for decades and decades and decades, and they'll do what we want. So we want the power to rest there. They used to want all the power to be in the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court actually read the Constitution about 3 or 4 times over, and now they're no stinking good for the Democrats because they can't make up stuff anymore.
Yes, indeed. Happy news, indeed. From Grover Norquit, the founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform, ATR.org. Grover, thanks for a great conversation as always. We'll look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you, sir.
You got it, guys. Take care.
Yeah, very good indeed. All right, Grover, always the happy camper. Always got.
He is. He is a happy camper, and as we've said many, many times, he does not age.
He does not. He does not. 5:46 in the Heartland. We got to age real quickly here and get to our next segment. We're going to take a quick break here. Then we'll be right back. We will wrap things up, hand you off to Larry Connors USA, and then Jamie Allman with the Allman Report, 6:05 and 8:05 for each of those fantastic programs. All that is next here on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
You need to stop dipping into your ketamine stash.
Into what? Excuse me?
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A bigger warm-up on the way for Friday. Overnight low 40 degrees. Slight chance for a brief shower in the morning. About 20% chance, though. And then in the afternoon, partly cloudy and a big warm-up, a high of 66. There's a chance for a couple showers in the evening and nighttime. They'll be light and brief, nothing big, but you may see a little light rain Friday night. It'll be out by daybreak on Saturday. Saturday, a little cooler, high 54, partly to mostly sunny. Sunday, warmer 62 and sunny skies for a nice weekend. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
On the next, Larry Connors, USA.
More reaction to President Trump's address to Congress. Did he look so great, or did the Democrats really look so bad?
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Hey, I want you to go somewhere that Chris Arps and Becky Arps, the wonderful Arpses, they went today. They went to Civia Law. You can as well. You can visit them online first. If you want to check them out, see what they got going there before you make the big phone call. You can do that too. And their website isn't just some like bare bones thing with not much on it at all. CiviaLaw.com has a ton of information on it. First, when you go there, you're going to see them tell you that not every law firm is created equal. And that is true. Civia Law is used by so many of our local families, thought leaders, and companies in our region. Why? Because they assist with all the very important issues and aspects with life, all those transitional things where you got to make choices. Chris and Becky went in today for estate planning, and that is definitely in the wheelhouse of Todd Civia and all the gang at Civia Law. They specialize in that, and you don't want to go to just anybody for estate planning. You want to go to people who know exactly what they're doing. How about elder law, special needs matters, real estate matters, personal injury, business, and more. Yep, those are all specialty niche areas, and I highly recommend you go to Todd Civia and the gang at Civia Law for any of those needs and even much more. There's a Civia Law Center somewhere near you. I think they've got 6 centers total up and down the Interstate 70 corridor in western Illinois and in eastern Missouri. Good chances are that there is a Civia Law Center somewhere very close to you. A unique thing that they also put up on their website, online forms. Yeah, you can actually access some of their online forms to help you with the preparations for when you go in and meet with them. They love working with business owners from startup phase to, let's say you're ready to sell your business, maybe go retire, buy an island in the Caymans. Well, they can help you with everything from business formations and startups to the sale of the business, all the mergers and acquisition work, transactional, contractual matters in between. They love working with small and mid-sized business owners because that's what they are as well. That's what we are as well. I can't think of a better law firm that I would refer folks to in this day and age than Todd Civia and the gang at Civia Law, because they specialize in those key critical areas that involve all of life's challenges and transitions. Check them out today, CiviaLaw.com. That's CiviaLaw.com.
Dr. Randy Tobler here, and I know that when you're looking for a dentist, you have to make sure you choose a dental practice that's compatible with you and the needs of your family. Well, I'd like to tell you about my dentist, Dr. Dan Cusimano, and his partner, Megan Dwyer, and their team at Advanced Dentistry at St. Charles. The great team at Advanced Dentistry of St. Charles can accommodate all of your cosmetic and restorative needs because their passion is general dentistry. Implants, crowns, bridges, even dentures. That what you need the most is what they'll provide in a personalized, focused way. And they can provide therapeutic and cosmetic options like Botox and dermal fillers. Get to know them and all they have to offer by calling 636-978-0226 or visit them on the web at advanceddentistrynow.com. That's Dr. Daniel Cusimano and Dr. Megan Dwyer at Advanced Dentistry of St. Charles.
That's Advanced Dentistry Now, 636-978-0226. Or visit them on the web at advanceddentistrynow.com.
Hey, it's Vic. Are you worried about rising taxes? Well, you're not alone. With government spending outpacing revenue, many Americans fear a tax hike is on the horizon. But here's the good news. You have options. Chris Cooper of Serenity Wealth Management specializes in tax-efficient strategies for income planning, legacy, and growth. Chris knows your money will go to one of 3 places: the government, healthcare, or your family and charities? Shouldn't your loved ones come first? Don't let Uncle Sam be your biggest beneficiary. Take control of your financial future today. Visit SerenityNowTax.com for your free copy of Chris's book, The New Holistic Retirement. Serenity Wealth Management, because you deserve peace of mind in retirement. Request your free book today at SerenityNowTax.com. That's SerenityNowTax.com to get your free copy of The New Holistic Retirement. That's SerenityNowTax.com. Serenity Now with Chris Cooper.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
American woman, stay away from me. American woman, mama, let me be.
So two very special proclamations, the first of which is a proclamation that proclaims March 2025 as Women's History Month in honor of all the wonderful women in your administration, in honor of everything you've done for women and this administration has done for women in just, a month and a half? So.
Yeah, we've done a lot. Women, we love you.
5:53 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And right then, Tim, every feminist in America threw up in a little bit.
They just did. I love how he says, "Women, we love you."
Exactly. Tim, I don't know if your phone went off, but mine did. Apparently, there is an Amber Alert.
There is.
In the Moscow Mills area, there's a gray 2023 Chrysler Pacifica, Missouri license RK8H57. I guess I won't let me press to get more details, but Missouri Amber Alert. So if you see that car, updates will be posted as there. No, took me to the Twitter site, but yes, it's a Moscow Mills 2023 Chrysler Pacifica, Missouri license RK8H57. So be on the lookout for that.
Yes.
You know, since Joe Biden has not been in office, Tim, this last 6 weeks or so, we haven't heard much about Hunter Biden. He's kind of fell off the face of the earth since he has gotten his pardon. But he's back, not in trouble, but he is back in the news. He's saying that his financial situation is grim, Tim. Say he has struggled. Listen to this. Amazing.
He struggles.
He has struggled to sell his paintings in recent months.
Oh, boy.
Why? I wonder why. His dad's no longer president. They can't funnel money. There's no reason to funnel money into him anymore. Boy, that's amazing how his paintings aren't selling.
Is it because he's not really a painter?
Exactly. He said, Tim, he's only moved one painting in the past 14 months, compared with 27 in the prior 2 or 3 years. He says he has significant debts and a lackluster sales of his memoir. Apparently, there wasn't a big market for that. It only sold 4,200 copies during a 1-year period. And I bet you a donor bought 4,299 copies of that book. He says, given the positive feedback and reviews of my artwork and memoir, I was expecting to obtain paid speaking engagements and paid appearances, but that has not happened. He wrote that in that was written in a court filing. So I guess it sounds like Hunter is filing bankruptcy. I guess all of the money they squirreled away from Burisma and all that, they ain't not going to hand Hunter his share or what? What do you think is going on there?
Where's the big guy?
Are they stiffing Hunter?
Yeah, Chris, where's the big guy? I thought Joe Biden once said that he thought Hunter was the most brilliant, most wonderful person on the planet. Why aren't Jill and Dr. Jill and President Joe coming in and saving the day for poor old Hunter?
Strange.
Really weird.
And we talk about how the Democrats are in disarray. They don't really have any leadership. Their organizations are firing people. Well, about the same thing. ABC, they are an arm of the Democratic Party. Tim, they are expecting to lay off 200 employees recently. And the big news yesterday was they eliminated their 538 website. which they had partnered with. I can't think of the cat's name, but he made a big deal out of that because he predicted every single state that Barack Obama was going to win. But they have shut that down. MSNBC, of course, has announced mass layoffs. Washington Post has announced mass layoffs. The Post-Dispatch, I mean, do they even have a building here now, or somebody just
is that just a name
from the basement?
Is that literally just a name? Chris, is the Post being like printed in Idaho? You know, yeah,
I think so. So I think somebody just does it does the entire paper from their basement, sends it off somewhere, and then it's printed, and somehow it magically appears.
Just a website like everybody else.
Exactly. All right, Larry Connors USA is up next. He's going to talk about Trump warning Hamas, but also negotiating with the terrorists. Former White House staffer writes a book claiming Obama-Biden weaponized the Catholic Church. Wow, that's a big story you want to listen to. And from 8 to 10, Jamie Allman will enlighten us with all the big stories of the day with his wisdom. You've been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Drive safe and have a great evening.
Clint Black in concert. Clint Black, an incredible night featuring some of his greatest hits. Saturday, April 12th, 7 p.m., the Family Arena. Clint Black in concert. Special guests Ruby Lee and Emily Ann Roberts. On sale now at the Carroll House Furniture box office located at the Family Arena or Ticketmaster. Don't miss Clint Black.
Hungry for lunch? Head to Pop's Kitchen downtown. Monday through Thursday, 11 to 2. Grab our unbeatable $7.99 lunch special with fries. Choose from juicy cheeseburgers, Philly steak or chicken, 6-piece wings, 2-piece fish of your choice, or a savory gyro sandwich. Pop's Kitchen downtown, 1330 Washington Avenue, where good food meets great value. Order online at popskitchendowntownstl.com. That's popskitchendowntownstl.com.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Bunny Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on the Sabos radio airways for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. You can now hear Doug and Safe Bunny